most brands are not losing customers because they have a bad product. They're losing them because they're speaking the wrong language to the right people. I have personally worked with more than 100 brands, including skincare, D2C startups, SaaS companies, FMCG players. And the pattern I see everywhere is the same. Brilliant products buried under scripted ads. They have like a lot of polished testimonials and campaigns built in boardrooms by people who have never actually stood in front of their customer and asked a real question. That is exactly what VoxPop fixes. It's not something that you use as a content format. It is not a trend, but it is actually a system, a repeatable way to go from guessing what your audience thinks to actually knowing it and then turning that knowing into content that actually converts. I'm going to be talking about 10 different frameworks in this video, which will have all the scripts and all the real examples you can use to build a high converting VoxPop strategy from scratch. Whether you are a D2C founder, a content strategist, a brand strategist, or a marketing or growth head that's actually tired of throwing money at ads that get scrolled past by, this video is going to fix all of that for you. Before I get into the actual frameworks, let me kill a myth. The problem isn't that your camera quality is bad or you're using the wrong editing software. It's not even about your budget. The problem is that your content is built on assumptions. And these are basically assumptions about your audience rather than the actual conversations with them. Here's what that looks like in real life. I have seen a lot of brands say, our audience wants a premium solution. But in reality, what they want is a quick win that doesn't make them feel stupid. Sometimes brands say that our messaging isn't clear. The reality is it's actually an industry jargon and no one outside the office understands this. A lot of brands say that our content is not authentic or it is authentic. But the reality is that the content is almost as real as a reality TV show. The gap between what brands think their audience wants and what their audience actually says when no one is prompting them, that gap is where conversion ends up dying. I'm going to show you how VoxPop is the real bridge to this gap. When you take your brand's big question to the street, when you stand in front of real people and let them react in real time, you stop guessing. You start capturing, and the content that comes out of those moments, it does not need clear copywriting or clever copywriting. It just lands because it is the audience talking back to itself. One such brand that I was working with was spending lakhs of money on ads every single month, but they were bringing in zero traction. They were confused with their messaging. And what we ended up doing when we entered their ecosystem was we ran a basic content strategy where we figured out what kind of street interviews we can engineer for them. We discovered the real pain point, and we found that the language their audience actually used was very different from the kind of ads they were running. We uncovered hidden objections that their team had never even considered. And the result was a 15% uplift in conversions in the first 2 weeks of running the new ad campaigns. There was no new ad spend, no additional ad spend at all. So basically, the street told them what 6 months of market research could not. Now, let's talk about how to do it yourself. See, most people think, or actually most brands think, VoxPop is very simple. Just show up, point a camera, ask a question, and that's why 90% of the VoxPop content out there in the world fails. High converting VoxPop is not about capturing reactions. It's about engineering the conditions for real reactions to actually take place. I'm going to share with you one such system, which I call the PACE system. It is the foundation you run every interview through before a single frame is shot. First, we start with P, which stands for permission. Create psychological safety. Before the camera comes out, spend about a minute with the person. Be as human as you can. Don't try to be a marketeer. Don't try to be someone trying to shoot a piece of video with them. Comment on something around you or something about them. Ask a completely random question. Let them see you as a human being, not someone who's trying to interrogate them. Because when people feel safe, they don't perform. They actually start building a connection and they start talking. 2, start anchoring. Set some kind of a context without scripting and give them just enough framing so they understand what you are exploring. Don't try to preload an answer. Just frame it as if, you're curious. You want them to actually talk about whatever your topic is. Because what happens is people actually think about whatever you're talking about as a human having a conversation or an interaction. And they don't consider you a brand. They kind of become more comfortable and forget that the camera exists and they are not so conscious about the camera itself. And that becomes the perfect anchor for your video to have a strong basis to perform. The third one is catalyst. This is the question that triggers genuine emotion. Don't directly go in and ask, what do you think about X, or what do you have to say about this topic? That's a very surface level question. Instead, ask them, when did you last feel like a product actually understood what you needed? Or something like, what's the one thing you wish brands in this space would just stop doing? So they feel valued, they feel heard, they feel seen. And when you hit all the different emotions, when you hit all the different senses, the answer that comes out becomes a gold mine for your content, for your ad set. Next is extraction, which is for E. Capture the moment naturally. Don't celebrate when they say something that you wanted them to say. Don't nod too eagerly or too much. Just hold that space for them. The extraction phase is about letting the truth fully arrive before you actually reach for the edit button. So I'm going to give you one script example over here. You can go out in the street and talk to a random stranger and be like, you know what? I'm doing like this quick thing where I'm talking to strangers like yourself. It's not for sales. I promise I will make sure that you feel comfortable. And then you can ask them a question like, what's one thing you care about when you buy a t-shirt, or when you buy a perfume, or when you buy a beauty product? What's going to happen is they're going to go back in their head. They're going to think about that particular moment when they were making a decision to buy that particular product. You give them that space, wait it out, because when you are silent and when you hold space for them like a container, they will actually start sharing with you their emotion, and you will become that person that is going to walk away with an amazing, insane, converting, high value ad set for your brand. Okay? Just remember that the silence is where the magic happens. So once you're done with this, I'm going to talk about a counterintuitive truth about street interviews. People reveal more when they're fixing your misunderstanding, because, by nature, by default, we like to correct others. So when they're actually answering a direct question, rather than correcting you while feeling safe that they can actually correct you, the answers become even more authentic and genuine. So I'm going to share another framework that I personally like to use, which is called the drop framework, which is all about stop asking but start correcting. First, default, displace their assumption. Start with a mild, slightly wrong take on what they do or believe. Something like, so you mostly buy this for the taste, right? Now, this is something that is actually engineered in a psychological manner, because when you already know from their body language that they're not buying this for taste, they're buying it for a different reason, which is a little bit more deeper. But when you throw something on a surface level, their body language instantly shifts and they're like, wait, I need to correct you on this. 2, restate it back, but with a bit of mistake. When I say mistake, I'm not saying M-I-S-T-A-K-E, but I'm saying M-I-S-S-T-A-K-E. So what you're intending to do here is have a wrong assumption of what they just said and reinstate it back to them. So do this intentionally, okay? Mischaracterize their reasoning. So you can say something like, so it's basically a desert replacement for you, right? And make sure that your mistake or your mischaracterization is clearly heard to them. Don't try to be insulting. Don't try to be condescending, but rather make it like a very naive or innocent mistake that you made. Third, O for observe the correction. The moment you make this mistake, what they are going to jump into doing without understanding or without thinking too much is they'll have like a slight irritation in their voice, and they'll start doing something like, no. It's more about not having to think about nutrition. And the moment you get that correction, that is the real answer you're looking for. It's very unprompted. It's very unscripted. But subconsciously somewhere, you have ended up engineering the answer based on what you wanted it to be like. And then finally, when they give you the answer you were looking for, P for pull the truth from the correction. Go one level deeper. Ask them again, what does it feel like when you don't have to think about it? And that answer that they are going to give after this particular pulling is where the real gold lies. So a simple example is, so this is basically a health fix purchase for you, right? Something that you can post about and look fancy on Instagram. Let them correct you. Once they have corrected you, go back and be like, interesting. So when did that shift happen for you? When did it stop being about how it looks and start being about how it actually makes you feel? The correction moment, that slight lean in, that is the flash, that is the moment. That not right is the place where you're going to start cutting to the point, and your hook and your content and everything that you're making, like the foundation of your actual next viral campaign, is going to start developing from. Most VoxPop stays at layer 1. Most of them just want an answer from you. The moment you get that answer, you move on and you try to go for the next question as if you're trying with some kind of an army man and you have like a machine gun in your hand and you're like boom 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 boom. But the real polished, the actual predictable response that the person has given 100 times before is not what you're seeking. What you are seeking is a layer 3 kind of an answer, which is going to completely change the trajectory and the way that consideration is going to happen within your funnel. So the real psychology of the kind of answers that you want is going to take place with something called the Socratic method. So a Socratic stack is 3 layers of questioning, which you can do in this particular order. I'm going to just walk you through on how it exactly works. So layer 1 is the surface level question. What do you usually look for when you're buying a chocolate? So when they answer, it is something that they have practiced in their head, and they want to like position themselves in a way that they don't get a lot of flake for it. This is completely fine if you are on the launch pad, you are just building something and you just want things to land. But the real magic starts happening at layer 2, where you start challenging their answer. You start with, why does that matter more to you than actually eating something that's available in the market, like a chocolate that's sweet, that is marketed very widely on ads, rather than going for a chocolate which is, healthier for you, which actually helps you sleep better, or maybe helps you fix your nutrition and your fitness. When you're doing this, what's happening is you're not arguing, you're just pressing on the logic a bit gently. This creates a micro friction moment, and now they are not answering based on rehearsal, but they are thinking a little bit more deeply, and they want to like counter attack you or maybe give you a deeper answer, because now they're starting to connect with you. But this is also not where the actual magic happens. The magic happens at layer 3, where you expose the real belief. This is where you ask them, so when did you start thinking about eating a healthier chocolate, or a chocolate that helps you with sleep, or maybe a chocolate that helps you stay awake because it has caffeine? When did it stop being enough for you? This is where the real crux, the real effort of the street interview is going to take shape. Because what is happening is they absolutely forgot that the camera exists. They become part of the conversation that you're having with them, and they just start talking with you naturally. And this is the video that is going to help you in conversion. This is the actual gold mine that you're seeking. Now, let me give you a script example for a skincare brand. So I would go up to someone on the street and I would ask them this question. What do you look for when you buy skincare? You can get an answer on the lines of, I want it to be natural, honestly. This is where you hit with the second question, the second layer. Why does natural matter more? Is it not about just the results? This is where they say, because I don't fully trust the results and the claims that brands make anymore, and I wanted to know what are the ingredients in this particular beauty product that I'm using. This is where you go into level 3, and you're like, when did you stop trusting those claims? What exactly happened that you thought that you need something more natural? That is when they're going to give you an answer like, probably when I realized everything said dermatologist tested or created in a lab by our scientists, but when I actually went ahead and tried those things, it did not work for me. The moment you hit this level, what is going to happen is where the real conversation starts to take place. That acts like the hook. When they say something like, dermatologist tested, but it does not actually work for me or for my skin, that is the best hook that you can have for your next video. Because no agency is going to write something like that, but your audience just did. I'm going to take a counterintuitive approach once more, because there's no fun in just going linear when we're talking about something that involves a lot of impromptu or improvisation on the streets. You see, the best moments in any street interview aren't when people love your product. They are when people actually admit they almost didn't buy, but for some reason they ended up buying it. And that is where the transformation happened. So I'm going to talk about another framework. It's called the fault line. Here, F stands for find the hesitation that they had. Was there a moment where you almost didn't buy this particular product? Because the moment they start thinking about that almost moment, that is when they start going into a little bit of emotions, and no brand has the guts to actually go out and ask about this negative angle to amplify their judgment. The moment they say an answer to that reasoning about why they almost didn't go ahead with whatever we were planning, you amplify it by asking them, what was the actual thought in your head? Don't soften it. Let them say the doubt out loud. Third, you use you to uncover what changed. So what flipped it? It's a simple, a very direct way, which is going to make sure that the most important question in the sequence is answered. Next, use L for let the shift land on camera. After what they answer, say nothing. Just stay still. Let that moment sink in. The camera will start capturing the shift. You don't need to narrate anything from this point onwards. And finally, T is for tying that feeling, but not the feature. Because people buy based on emotions. They don't buy based on features or benefits, because every brand in the market is already trying to sell them with that. But the emotion, the feeling is what is going to set your video apart, and it's going to make sure that it lands in the right spot and captures the attention in the best way possible. You can say something like, So it wasn't really about the product, was it? It was about the feeling, and that feeling was worth all the risk that you took, right? Again, as we already know, I'm going to give you a script example so that you have an idea of how this would feel like in real life. So you're going to go ahead and ask the stranger, before you bought this particular product, was there a moment where you were going to put it back on the shelf? And you're going to pause. They are also going to pause. And this is exactly the moment you want to engineer in your video. They're going to give you an answer. And after that answer, you're going to be like, what was going through your head the moment you actually picked it back from the shelf? Now, let them answer this question fully. And then finally, what changed? What made you go ahead with this? What made you say that I'm going to do this? This sequence of doubt, flip, and then conviction is your entire conversion funnel. It is going to be laid out in such a simple manner. And when your editors are going to edit this particular video and put it out in your ad library, you're going to start seeing how new people who are aware of your product and about the problem are going to start becoming a new customer for your brand. Before moving ahead, I want to talk about this one question type that actually outperforms everything else when it comes to street interviews. It's not what do you think about X. It's not how does X make you feel. It is actually about what does this remind you, or does this remind you of anything? And this is exactly why it works. Most questions push people toward an answer. This style of question is basically a mirror question. It pulls something out that they didn't even know was existing. The brain does not process products logically. It processes them through memory, comparison, and feeling. When you say something like, does this remind you of anything? It opens a door your product cannot open by itself directly. Again, here is a script example that a food D2C brand can use. So the old question would be something like, what do you like about this? And the result would be something like, it tastes good, packaging was nice, it was cost effective. The moment you ask something like a mirror question, where you ask them, what does this remind you? Or does it remind you of anything? They're going to give you an answer like, honestly, this feels like something my nani would have made for me. Or this is something that provokes nostalgia for me. Or this is something that reminds me of my mother and the way that I would go back at home after my school and just eat because I love the feeling of going back home. You know, this is the same product, but it's a completely different brand brief or a creative brief. The second answer ended up building 3 months of content, one brand film, and an entire campaign that we could run for a brand that I was working with for an entire quarter. So basically the point is, you're not looking for descriptions, you're looking for connection. The moment someone connects your product to a memory, like their grandmother's kitchen or coming back from school, their first independent grocery run, the morning routine that makes them feel like they have their entire life together, that's your brand story. That's your brand narrative. It's not something that you wrote in a boardroom. The one that actually lives in their head is the one that makes them feel human. You know, I want to talk about something called the catalysis within your interviews. Weak interviews ask for a lot of follow-up questions. But what ends up happening with follow-up questions is people start feeling bored and they just zone out and they're like, you know, when will this end? But the strong interviews use something called the echo technique. This is a technique that I created using a lot of clinical psychology, hostage negotiation, and the best performing VoxPop content in existence. It works because it makes people explain themselves to themselves. E stands for extract the key phrase from their answer. C stands for confirm it back to them. H stands for hold the silence that follows, and O stands for observe what fills it. I'm going to share another script example, as you know, is the pattern within this video. So they say something like, I don't know, I just feel like it's more honest than other brands. Most of the interviewers are going to be like, that's interesting, but what do you mean by honest? When you use the echo technique, you're going to be like, more honest? What does that mean? You're just going to pause, going to have a lot of silence, just 2 words, their words, back at them, and then nothing. What happens next is always better than any follow-up question you could ask, because now they're explaining themselves to themselves. They're going to go and say something like, the ingredients are real. They don't pretend it's something it's not. I've tried things that just felt like marketing, but this one just didn't feel like it. It felt more real, more genuine, and more authentic. Something that I wanted to use. From this one simple technique, you would end up with 3 different ad angles, 4 sentences, none of which you would have gotten from a direct question at all. Apply the echo technique, which I just shared with you. And you know, the best part about the echo technique It's not limited to interviews on the streets. You can apply it to any kind of scripts that you're writing for your videos. You can apply it to the comment section below your Instagram videos or your YouTube videos. If you're someone who enjoys writing blog articles, this is exactly what you can apply. Whenever you see a comment, pick one or two words from their comment. For example, you said the product felt like marketing. Can you speak a little bit more about it? The moment you start using this echo methodology or the echo technique, it creates a lot of depth without pushing hard. And depth is what separates content that gets saves from content that gets just scrolled past by. Talking about scrolling past a post brings me to the next section of this video. You know what? You don't hold attention by being more interesting. You hold it by being unfinished. There is a particular sequence. It's called the open loop sequence that is used by pickup artists in the dating industry. And I'm going to teach you how to exactly use that to your advantage in your next VoxPop video. This open loop sequence is how you're going to structure your next VoxPop content so that it connects with people genuinely and people cannot scroll away. O is for open with unresolved tension. Don't start with the product. Don't start with a brand. Start mid-story. She almost returned it. And they're going to be like, who? Like, why? What exactly happened? The viewer is already bought in. P, push deeper before resolving. And honestly, I understand why. More tension. More unresolved tension. You're stacking open loops. You're not closing them. E, extend with a second layer of tension. Because the first week, it didn't work. Now, this is where two unresolved threads have started. And the brain is like, what is exactly happening? I want to know more. I want more of this. And N, never ever fully close until the very end. And then on day 8, she stopped counting the days. Most D2C content resolves tension too fast. They give you the result in the first sentence itself. The open loop sequence builds patience and investment. By the time you close the loop, the viewer already has a lot of emotional investment made into what is the resolution going to be like. They're going to now earn the resolution, and which is going to make them feel like instead of consuming this, I'm actually part of this video. Because now they feel a particular emotion, and the feeling is what is going to help you set yourself apart, set yourself aside from all the generic content that exists. Especially you see all of these lot of VoxPop content creators just going out in the street and stacking trends. You are just gonna not be one of them. You're gonna build your own content pipeline. Your paid as well as your organic pipeline is going to have so much engagement that you're going to come back to this video and write in the comments how I ended up helping you. Before moving ahead, let me show you an example of how this would look like in the form of a script. I ran 200 street interviews across Indian cities for D2C brands, and one answer from a 24-year-old student outside a mall in Bengaluru changed how I do this work. She wasn't supposed to be the best interview of the day. She almost walked away, but she didn't. And you know what she said? I'll get to that. But first, let me show you the framework she accidentally helped me build. This unresolved statement keeps you hooked for until the end. That's an open loop. Now, the viewer has a reason to stay. And that is exactly what you're aiming for. That brings me to my next point. Most VoxPop interviews yield one usable moment only. But I created this entire protocol called the stack protocol, which produces almost 7 different videos. And the difference is architecture. Most creators treat every question as standalone. Ask, get answer, move on. No accumulation, no build pressure, no stacking. But the stack protocol treats the interview like a pressure cooker that builds slowly and releases emotions, feelings, and answers in a very dramatical way. S stands for set the emotional baseline. Spend the first 2 minutes not talking about the product at all. What's been taking up most of your headspace lately? Get them into their real life, not their consumer life. T stands for test a mild provocation. Introduce the product, the context very gently. Does something like, let's say your product category is in the beauty space, fit into that anywhere? Watch what happens next. A, amplify what surfaces. Whatever they say, even if it's small, just amplify it. That sounds like it actually matters quite a bit to you. Don't confirm it, just amplify whatever you heard. C, challenge the comfortable version. But does it actually help you, or does it just feel like it does what it said it does and you're just happy with it? Stay in the productive discomfort. Don't rescue them from it. And then finally, K, keep pulling the strings until they surprise themselves. Why does it matter? What would that mean? What would be different? Keep asking variations of the same question from different angles. By the 5th question in the stack, they're not going to be answering you anymore. They're going to be answering themselves. So just like how we saw in the echo methodology, This is also a very amazing framework or an architecture that I sometimes end up using in my videos. When you use the stack protocol, you end up getting moments that become the entire campaign itself. The stack protocol for a post would look something like this. Each step in the stack is a beat: introduction, provocation, amplification, challenge, and release. If you structure the script of a video or a blog post in this exact way, readers start feeling a rising tension and a genuine payoff comes in their way. They don't just read it, they actually end up finishing it, increasing the amount of time they're spending with your video or your blog post. And when they finish it and when they get that dopamine hit, they end up saving it, they end up sharing it, they end up liking it. Basically, they end up engaging, and that is the metric you are looking for. And finally, when you stack upon engagement after engagement after engagement, you end up building a customer that is nurtured and is ready to buy whatever you have to sell to them. You know what? I almost forgot. There's this framework most brands have never even considered. Before you shoot your next VoxPop content or a campaign, run a pressure test on your message, not on your production. And here's how it exactly works. Take your current best performing ad copy. Take the headline that's converting. Take the hook that your team is proud of. Go to the street with it, not to film, but just to test it. Say it out loud to a real person verbatim. And just look at the emotion on their face. What exactly is happening? Don't focus on the words, but focus on the emotion on their face. Because what happens in the first 2 seconds when you tell everything that you wanted to, something that analytics can never tell you. If they nod, if they squint, is there like half a second of confusion? Are they like lost? Are they being too polite? Whatever it is, that squint, that micro expression of wait, what? Is your drop-off rate explained? That's your high CAC problem. Basically, CAC stands for customer acquisition cost. And this single expression, this single facial expression is going to help you solve this problem. I'm going to share with you a script for a pressure test session. Can I try something quick on you? I'm going to say a single sentence and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Be honest. And please don't get offended. Read your headline and just be like, did that make sense? What did you think it meant? The gap between what you meant and what they heard, that gap is your entire messaging problem. Fix it before you film and then go back to the streets, and you already have so many different frameworks, protocols, whatever that I've shared with you, scripts and methodologies. Just go ahead, apply it, and you will see the magic taking shape, taking form, and you're going to come back to this video, as I said previously, and leave a comment on how this video helped you. Before I jump into the final section of this video, I want you to know this. Never trust the first answer. Not because people lie, but people generally end up becoming performative. When they know that there's a video recording and there's like this pressure on them to perform, they get into their performative act. They start not being true. They're not being real, they're not being authentic and genuine. The first answer is the one they think they're supposed to give to you. The one that sounds perfect, the one that sounds reasonable, the one that's not gonna get them flake or any kind of negative comments. The one that won't make them look shallow or impulsive on camera. It's a social response, but not a real, authentic or a genuine one. The second answer comes after they've heard themselves speak, after the mild awkwardness of talking to a camera, after they've committed to a particular position. And when I say position, I don't mean like a physical posture position. I mean the position that they think they have established through the video in the viewer or in the audience's mind. And then you say 3 words. Interesting. Why though? I'm going to share with you another script example of how this works. So let's assume they gave you like the first answer, which is, I like how it naturally smells. And then you throw the 3 words. Interesting. Why though? The second answer is going to be like, honestly, I don't trust anything with an ingredient I can't read. It's basically the same person, but 7 seconds apart. That second answer, that unguarded, slightly uncomfortable truth became the hook, the body and the copy. And the CTS for an ad creative that ran for months, consistently outperforming everything the brand had run ever before. The first answer is what they believe that they think. The second answer is what they actually think. Always ask why. Always wait for the second answer, because that is where the real brief or the real truth or the real magic is created. I'm almost exhausted and I'm pretty sure you got a ton of value from this video. I'm going to have a quick recap of all the frameworks that we spoke about, and it is going to form like an entire system that you can use in a repeatable manner in the next VoxPop video recording that you're going to put yourself through or maybe your team through. And here's how they all nest or come back together. First one is the phase where everything comes out before the camera comes out. It's the pressure test where you validate your messaging, and before you spend anything like your resources, your time or your energy or your money, you actually invest in pressure testing. 2, opening of the interview with the PACE system. Just go back into this video and watch the PACE system. You will create a lot of safety and that will create a lot of context. 3, deepen the conversation. Use the drop framework along with the Socratic stack. This is going to help you move past surface answers. 4, finding the emotional core. Use the mirror question along with the fault line, which will help you surface and create conviction and memories and feelings and emotions that you would not be able to do in a generic kind of a VoxPop interview. Next, capture the gold using the echo technique and the second question rule. Extract unscripted truth using this particular methodology. And finally, build the content, build the output using the open loop and the stack protocol. Because once you do this, you will end up structuring 7 clips per interview easily, effortlessly. In the end, this is what I want to tell you. The brands that are winning right now aren't the ones with the biggest ad budgets or the slickest production or the craziest, most clever questions. They're already using their language, sharing their stories, and naming pain points that are more powerful than anything a creative team could ever script. Your job isn't to create that content which is polished, perfect, clever, very creative. But it is actually to go out there, get that authentic reaction, capture that moment, capture that feeling, and then you will know that the street is where gold is waiting to be shoveled. The street is waiting for you. Go out there and just make the magic happen. And if you want a custom VoxPop question bank built for your brand category, just go ahead in the description of this video. There's a link that I've put down there. It will ask you for a few questions. Just fill in your answers, reply with your answers, or just go into the comment section. Because I have personally put together all the important questions, all the different formats that are going to work with your brand, your niche, that your audience is actually waiting for. This includes a lot of psychological research, my years of experience into creating VoxPop content, millions of views that I've stacked for different brands that is completely free for you, available for you at the click of that button. If you like this video, go ahead, give it a follow, drop whatever you learned into the comment section. And I will see you in the next video where we are going to be breaking down how VoxPop is going to be your next weapon to become the most amazing brand. My name is Shubham, also known as Branding Bum, signing off.